Hey, how you doing, guys? It's Trader Joe's. Today's video, it's about our quintessential question. It's basically a search for the best and most useful carry options for us to consider adding to our EDC rotation. You know, for over 100 years now, um, the Swiss Army knife in some configuration or other has had a prominent place in millions of pockets all around the world. Something with this much pedigree and clout is cemented pretty firmly as choice number one in the minds of everyone who thinks of themselves as some kind of a MacGyver, who saves the day by whipping this tool out of their pocket in a crisis and impressing anybody who sees it by performing some type of rescue or save the day type of a deal. But the question needs to be asked, from time to time, is there any other option that we are overlooking? Do we owe it to ourselves and actually to Victorinox to ask this question? And how does asking this question actually help Victorinox? Well, if we consider that as we ask this, that we have to assume that they're also asking this question. And merely asking this and exploring other options, it forces them to innovate, and it presents a challenge to their design and research department to weigh the options that they might not have considered. And if they see that we consumers are interested in alternative options, it kind of forces them to innovate, and therefore it improves their offerings when they innovate. Ultimately, it shows their stakeholders, the people that invest in their company, that they aren't just sitting on their laurels, that they are responding vigorously to the demands that their customers and future customers might expect. It also benefits us, you and me, by providing us with new tools in our collective EDC toolboxes, so to speak. So with that said, there's a few options that I've recently become aware of that I'm sure other people have also become aware of. Just last week I put up a video about this thing, which is an alternative to a Swiss Army knife. And it's in a very different form factor. And it's got some things that are not in the Swiss Army knife, but it's unique to its own design. And the one that I recently came upon was this one. This is from a company called Nextool, and this one's called the Nextool Knight EDC multifunctional knife. And this is it right here. And essentially what this is, it's basically like one handle of a multi-tool without the pliers. So, you have a lot of times, when you look at one scale or one arm of a multi-tool, you'll have a screwdriver, you'll have maybe scissors or a file or a saw or something like that, a flat blade screwdriver, and it comes in handy. It's nice having all of these and the pliers. I think this, to me, if you asked me what I think is the ultimate thing to carry, I would say something like this, but not everybody really is interested in carrying something like this. Maybe they don't see themselves as needing a pair of pliers. And if you look at this is an older model of the Victorinox Swiss Tool Spirit. It's not the X or anything like that. It's an older model. There's no pocket clip. It goes into a sheath. I keep this in a sheath. I've been carrying this for years. And it's been serving me very well. I don't really have any problems with it. I don't even really need to consider other things, but I just like to periodically investigate other things and just to check them out. So if we look at this, now also, I'll go back to this for a second. This is like close to $100 or more even for something like this. And it's got the pliers and it's got a lot of the tools, but they're spread out over two handles. But something like this is one handle without the pliers, but they managed to select certain tools that they put in here, and they chose a side that has a pocket clip on it, or they added a pocket clip to it. And to me, that's pretty interesting, you know. And considering that this right now is $19, you know, almost $20, you know, $19.99 on Amazon. You know, as opposed to this is a Victorinox Spartan. You know, this is close to $30, and this one is $19.99. It's, you know, you could buy two of these basically and get this. You know, I mean, sometimes these are, you know, it's not double or anything, but it's got some interesting aspects to it, and we're going to go over them right now. It's got a one-hand deployable knife blade. It locks, and it's quite a bit sizable in comparison to the knife blade that you would get in a Victorinox. You know, and this one doesn't lock. So that's one thing that's, you know, this has an advantage in that way, in having a lock. It's a nice and slim form factor. The other side, it has a huge pair of scissors, which I happen to really like. I love having a pair of scissors on me, whether it's just for cutting paper or other objects, or trimming your mustache or your nose hair, or whatever, you know, cutting your fingernails. You could do a lot of different things with a pair of scissors, in my opinion. And I think they're overlooked by a lot of people, but I think that they're invaluable because they can do things that you just can't do with a knife. So if I'm ever given the option, I'm always going to select something that has a pair of scissors in it. The other tools that are in here, has a file. This has a cross-hatch design on this side of the file. This is just a straight line pattern on it, probably for fingernails. And this is probably more for wood or metal. And it has a notching surface as well. It's very small, obviously, so you're not going to get an enormous amount of work done. The inside tools do not lock, though, in this particular model. It also has a really nice Phillips head screwdriver on a square shank. The square shank probably fits some of the bit adapters, you know, so you could probably put a little bit of an extension socket on here and probably use this, you know, and you could even use it in a 90-degree configuration. But it's nice, and, you know, it's a nice tip on it. Let's see, over here on this side, I got a nice can opener. And it's got that nice fingernail grabber on this side. You know, I don't know how often you're using a can opener. Flathead screwdriver. It's got a wire stripping notch right there, sharpened. And what's nice is you can see that everything's in line. So if you're going to be using this as a screwdriver, you know, it's in like a normal configuration that you're used to. You know, and going back to this Phillips, the same deal. You know, it's in an inline position, which is very nice. Let's see, the last tool on here is an awl, which I like. I like having an awl, and it has the hole, you know, the sewing hole in the awl. That's very handy, you know, and it's a sharpened surface, so, you know, you could use this as a ferro rod striker or something like that, but I'm sure you could also use the back of the knife or the even the sides of the screwdrivers, and of course you can also use the file. You know, so thinking about this is $20, right, as opposed to this being $30. I found this guy on AliExpress, which is very similar to this. I mean, it also has a pocket clip. There's no brand on this, though. Sometimes you find some things on AliExpress that have no brand. So I think that they're just either they just copied it without adding a company name on it, and they just sell it. I mean, I don't know what this would have been from, but judging by the knife blade, it looks like a very similar knife blade that's on this one, except for the hole, maybe a little different. This is more of a flat grind, but this looks more of a hollow grind on it. This has a carbide glass breaker on it, on one end of it. This does not have that. But suppose if you had to break a window, you just smash the whole thing into a window. This also has a very large pair of scissors, but they're a little differently configured. The tips of them are a bit different. If we look at the tips of this one, this looks almost like a safety pair of scissors for like an EMS type of a person, with a rounded edge on it so that it would go underneath clothing maybe and not dig into someone's skin, you know, with the rounded sides on it. But this one's scissors are more squared off or angled. You can see the shape's a little different there. This one also has a lock in the back for the inside tools. There's only a couple of tools in this one though. The other one has quite a bit more, but you got a flathead screwdriver. Again, is in a inline position with a bottle opener. There's no can opener in this one. And this one you have to push this lock to unlock it. And then next to that is a Phillips, but it's a bit smaller than the Phillips that's in this one. But it's also nice because it's also a square shank, or more of a rectangular shank. But the Phillips is quite a bit smaller. Let's compare these two. Probably should have left it out, but here we go. You can see the tips are quite a bit different. This looks more of a refined, you know, this is more like cheaply made, you know, it's more rounded edges and the tip is rounded. This is more angular, so I think this would grab some screws a bit better. In fact, we could test it out right here. I happen to have a piece of wood with some screws that are started into it, and we could test it out to see how it grabs. So this one grabs it pretty good. This is the next tool. Let's try this one. Yeah, this one's camming out a little bit. But it does get the job done, but it does cam out. But then again, you know, this is a no-name brand. You're not going to be able to find this anywhere unless you go on AliExpress and just happen to stumble upon it and recognize it by its shape. This one has a brand. You could look it up as the Next Tool Knight, K-N-I-G-H-T. So, you know, if we're going back to our original question here about how does these other options help Victorinox out? Well, considering, like, let's say they see that a lot of people are buying this because either it's cheap or because it has the pocket clip, like that might prompt them to try to start making models with it. I know that they do have an add-on pocket clip now, but you know, this comes with it, you know, and it's a different layout. You know, it's long and skinny as opposed to being kind of bulbous in certain ways. You know, so some people may find this to fit in their pocket and in their hand, you know, and you know, pretty nice. This also, I just noticed now, this has ruler markings on the side. You know, you got up to 4 inches on this side, and from 0 to 10 centimeters on this side. You know, so you have some measurement options. You know, sometimes you're working on something and you're just like, oh, you know, you're just guessing what the size of it might be, but you could just hold this against it and you could just get a quick measurement and say this is exactly 2 inches. You know, you'll see the measurement there, you know, or else if you wanted to compare it. Or sometimes it's good to have this, like when you're, like I grew up in the United States. So to me, the metric measurements are kind of like a foreign idea to me. So if someone says, "Oh, it's 5 centimeters wide," like in my mind that doesn't mean anything to me. But if I can hold something against it, and I could see, or I could look at this and say, this is 5 centimeters, and I could flip this around and say, all right, that's about 2 inches. Then I get a better measurement and I get a better estimate as to the size of stuff. So let's test out these scissors just to see how they work. I mean, I noticed that on both of these types of scissors, you have to open them all the way in order to get the torsion bar to engage so that it actually works the way it's supposed to. Now let's try cutting various things with it. It's a piece of paper. This is the cheapo one, no name brand, and we'll try this one. This is the next tool. It's nice. They both cut paper really nicely, but paper's pretty easy. So let's try it with other materials here. I got a zip tie. Let's try a zip tie. That's the next tool, zip tie. Very nice. Let's try this knockoff thing. I'm calling it a knockoff. I'm not sure if it is or not. It also cuts it very nicely. Making a mess over here. Let's try, I call these Q-tips, even though they're really cotton swabs or cotton buds. But the paper core is kind of hard. Yeah. So the knockoff one cuts it. Let's try the next tool. This one was actually a little bit harder, but it did it. It did cut it very cleanly. Let's try like a shoelace. Easy peasy, no problem with the next tool. Let's try the knockoff one. Perfect, no problems. Dare I say that this scissor actually seems to work a little bit better than the next tool. But I can't really refer you to anybody, so this model, the Spartan, does not have scissors in it, but the Swiss Tool Spirit does. So let's get the scissors out of this one and compare the scissors. You can see this is as much as the scissors will open on the Victorinox Swiss tool. I mean, look at the difference. But size doesn't always matter, as all the girls always tell me. So this cuts the twist tie very nicely, even though it doesn't open that wide. Let's try it with the shoelace. So there's no problem with that. We'll try a piece of cardboard. No problem with the cardboard with the Victorinox. Let's try the next tool. Perfect, no problems. We'll try it with the knockoff one. No problems. So let's see. I got a ruler here, so let's do a couple of measurements just to get an idea. The overall length of the next tool in inches is 4 1/4. 4 1/4. The width of it is 3/4 of an inch. And I guess the height is also 3/4 of an inch. Overall length of a Swiss Tool Spartan is 3 1/2 as opposed to 4 1/4. So this is a little longer. Let's try cutting a piece of cotton banding. It's like a belt kind of material, a cotton belt. Let's try that with the scissors on the next tool. No problem. Let's try it with this no-name brand. Very nice. Try it again with the Swiss Tool Spirit. Because the mouth is so small on it, and the size of the material I'm cutting is wider than the width of the cutting surface, I have to nibble my way through it. But it does leave a very nice surface that it does cut. So I guess what I'm going to do now is ask you guys about what you feel about alternatives. See, like, I know that there's always a big following for Victorinox. You know, they've been around a long time. They deserve it. You know, they do make very nice quality material. I mean, these things are always really, really good. I've never even had one fail on me. The knives are really nice. I mean, they're not the greatest steel in the world, but when you get them keen and very sharp, they cut beautifully. This is a different one. This is a camper model, because this one was serrated actually on that Spartan. But if you ever cut like a piece of cheese or something like that, or fruit, I mean, because of this full flat grind, it just glides right through it, whatever you're cutting. But if we look at the blades on these ones, they're more of a saber grind. You know, so it's got, you know, primary edge, secondary bevel, you know, up to a flat. So, you know, it's got to go through the various angles of the grind. And sometimes that presents a problem depending upon the type of material you're cutting. Like cheese would be difficult, or a little bit more difficult with this than a full flat grind. This hollow grind is even worse because it's got to kind of wedge itself through, but it does get very sharp, you know. And, you know, obviously the blade in the Swiss Tool Spirit is the same type of a design as on the Spartan, or the camper. So the idea behind this video is, when we purchase things like this, and if Victorinox is kind of keeping their eye on the marketplace, and they see that people are gravitating towards things like this because they either have a pocket clip or they have like a nice design for the Phillips head or something like that, that compels them to try to improve their designs and to try to fit something like this within the design parameters of their available platform. And these types of things actually end up helping Victorinox, even though like it may initially hurt them, because I hear that they make like 100,000 of these a day. I mean, they got to be many millions a year that they sell of these. But if they can improve some of them by adding new components into them, you know, I mean, it's nice having a lot of these things. You know, it's nice having a corkscrew in the event that you're going to be opening up a wine bottle. But I mean, how many people? I've never used this to open up a wine bottle. If anything, I've used this to open up knots that were in rope. But it's nice having the toothpick and the tweezers, even though I know a lot of people don't even consider these things as being worthwhile mentioning. But I do find it handy. If there is something stuck in your teeth, what are you going to do? You know? But there's no truly convenient Phillips head option with this, except for possibly using this. But obviously, this is much better of an option when you had to open up a Phillips. You know, but they were able to get a really nice Phillips into this, and without it really taking up a lot of real estate comparatively. So I don't know why Victorinox can't just do the same type of a thing and sell one half of the handle. They probably can. They probably will, you know, but I would hope that they would add the pocket clip so that people would carry this around a little bit more conveniently. So that's really the point of this video, is to ask you to think about this as, you know, as a means of showing Victorinox that we as consumers are interested in other options. Not that we're going to change our opinions on this because of this, but just to have an extra option, you know, something with measurements on it, something with a Phillips head, something with a one-hand accessible knife. I know that's not legal in a lot of places, but I'm sure that there's places that the length of the blade here is not legal also. So, you know, there's always those types of scenarios and problems with selling things. So that's the whole point of this video, and I figured I would just talk to you about it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click the like button. If you like this type of content, you can subscribe, and next video I'll put up, we'll talk about something else. Meantime, enjoy, have a good day, and this is the Next Tool Night. Have a good day.